Hello and welcome to the big picture. The most violent incidents being witnessed in Bangladesh, said to be the worst ever since its independence, has resulted in a serious crisis for our eastern neighbors. The Shahbag uprising, as it is known, which began when a 1971 war crime convict, Abdul Khader Mullah, was sentenced to life imprisonment last month, has created what is being seen as Bangladesh's own Arab Spring. As lakhs of people pour out onto the streets of Dhaka since last 1 month, demanding death to war crime convicts and opposing the fundamentalist Jamaat-e-Islami debate about whether Bangladesh is trying to wriggle out of an Islamic structure to a plural secular state is also raging. The ruling Awami League government of Sheikh Hasina, which is seen as a beneficiary of the Shahbag uprising, however, has a tough task on hand to control the violence triggered by the Jamaat protesting against its leaders' conviction for war crimes. Meanwhile, the Indian President Pranab Mukherjee is on a visit, his maiden one as president, to Bangladesh, and has already been a victim of the local politics as opposition leader Khaleda Zia cancelled her appointment with him. Where is Bangladesh heading? Is this a battle between secular, progressive forces and fundamentalist forces? What will be the impact of it on not just on Bangladesh, but on India too? We will discuss all this today with Deb Mukherjee, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Dr. Smruti Pattanaik, Research Fellow at the Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis, Jayanto Ghoshal, Political Editor of Anandabazar Patrika in Delhi, Hilal Ahmed, Associate Fellow, Center for the Study of Developing Societies. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Mukherjee, first coming to you. Do you think this is a battle between pluralism and fundamentalism in Bangladesh?
I think there is more than one element involved here. There is a question of a frustration of over 40 years that there has been an eras of impunity for those who committed heinous crimes in 1971, which has been condoned by various governments. So there is a desire to have a closure. I do not give primary importance to the demand for the death sentence, which is how it started. Because I think underlying what is happening is what you said, namely the desire of the people to have a liberal, pluralistic society, which is denied by the Jamaat and those who have similar approach to politics and to society.
Right. Okay. And so you think this, which this death penalty thing, it rings some, it happened very closer home also recently in India. So is this something which has, what happened in Bangladesh, did those people there, because it was a Facebook uprising actually, the social media created this kind of a situation there. So what we saw in India also last month, so there is some kind of a comparison to the two, or is it a larger issue there?
No, I think the medium was the media and the Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
But the objectives are very different. In India, the young people wanted justice, they wanted safety for women. But in Bangladesh, the issues are fundamental to what has been described as recovering the real history of Bangladesh for the people of Bangladesh, and for asserting that the people at large want, as I said, a liberal, plural society.
Smruti, you think this wanting a liberal, pluralistic society, it's not going to be an easy task. Bangladesh has been aspiring to have one right from the time it won its independence, but there has been a lot of problems in attaining something like that. You think this is some kind of a final moment for that country in terms of regaining that aspiration which it had at the time of independence?
I agree with, this is a kind of uprising which one has not seen before. Of course, one has seen the same kind of uprising in 1971 when it was led by the Dhaka University students at that point of time. So the youth has always been on the forefront of this kind of movement in Bangladesh, and I feel that this perhaps, when the war crime trial has already started in Bangladesh, and it is very necessary for this to come to a conclusive end. Whether they are convicted, they are not convicted, I completely agree with Ambassador Deb Mukherjee. it is not just that, Abdul Qadir Mullah not getting the death sentence, but the thing is the impunity in which he showed the victory.
Exactly.
Victory
sign, and he even made a speech inside the court.
That actually is exactly mocking the crowd that, after...
Mocking the whole nation, actually.
Whole nation, out of 6 charges, 5 a person is convicted, and yet he goes scot-free. Perhaps that actually prompted the youth to think that, is there any kind of deal which people do not know? Or is this person going to go scot-free? Because, till now, always the accusation was that these are the people who have committed war crime. Now, if judicially they go scot-free, it becomes very difficult for the nation state actually to do anything conclusive. And I do agree that there is a need for the closure of this issue, which has been lingering in the history of the nation state for past 40 years. So therefore, this particular issue is extremely important.
Okay, Hilal, the issue that which has come about. You think the Sheikh Hasina government was aware that something like this would happen when they went in for the war crime tribunal?
Exactly. I would like to, there are 2 things which I think important to underline. First is that the domain of real politics.
Right.
And in the domain of real politics, the question we need to remember that now Jamaat-e-Islami is not 1970 or Jamaat-e-Islami.
Right.
It's a recognized political party,
right,
which has played a very significant role in the making of certain kind of political coalition.
And it's supposed to be a very strong economic force.
Exactly, exactly. Now, in this context, now the language by which we are describing these crises is very important, because the conceptual frame we are having, Arab Spring, or fundamentalism and liberalism, I think we need to get out of it, because when I was doing my field work in Bangladesh, I realized a very different kind of placing of Islam in the political discourses. On the one hand, we have got Jamaat-e-Islami, rightist Jamaat-e-Islami, using certain kind of political Islam. And at the same time, there are People's Islam, by which youth, they are not merely opposing Jamaat-e-Islami type of organization on the basis of secular, communal, progressive, non-progressive, but they are bringing the issues of Islam into the domain of public sphere, criticizing them. No, your Islam is not acceptable. Now, this is a very complex situation, which in my opinion need to be underlined and linked to the real domain of politics, where now the 1971 is a critical question, critical event. And this critical event is always evoked to get certain kind of political legitimacy. And this is precisely what the state is doing now. Now, you just evoke it, and this closure thing is quite complicated. You cannot close it, because the closure, for instance, we don't have...
Sentencing a dozen Jamaat-e-Islami, would it bring closure? That is the question.
Yeah. No, the problem is that in politics, when you do actual politics, there is no closure. Every closure is a new beginning.
Yes.
And that's why, what we see now, because this is uncontrollable, you evoke various kind of sentiments, and people are now with their own political vocabulary coming in. Now, this is our task actually to look at the complexity and then come to some conclusion.
Mr. Mukherjee, these complexities which Hilal is talking about, did the Sheikh Hasina government envisage such a situation when she went ahead and appointed this war crime tribunal?
I don't know that they would have envisaged this kind of an explosion. And mind you, the origin of the explosion really lies in the arrogance displayed by Mr. Mullah after his sentence.
As Smruti was pointing
out. The origin of this.
Yes.
Now with reference to what
that was a trigger.
That was the trigger. But with reference to what was just said, this has been a very old debate in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan. I mean, the Pakistanis, of course, said that you are not Muslims, you are only semi-Kafirs.
Absolutely.
And the Bangladeshis asserted, no, we are as good Muslims as anyone else, but we have our social norms, our customs.
And a very strong linguistic basis.
And a very strong, so therefore, it is... see, if you look at the strength of political parties, I mean, at the end of the day, the Jamaat normally gets about 5% of the votes.
Yes. So 3 to 5%.
Something like that. So it depends on the alliances which they have. So, but Yet, 6-7 years ago, there were people, learned people in India saying that Bangladesh is becoming Talibanized.
Right.
So when the political configuration is such, as we saw a few years ago, when the Jamaat was in government, then Bangladesh, as I have said, was on the abyss, on the edge of the abyss of getting into Islamic fundamentalism.
Right.
So I think what the people are trying to say is that we are
don't
not
want.
anti-Islamic.
Exactly.
We are not antis, but we reject the extremist form of Islam, this Salafi or Wahhabi, whatever, which you promote.
So there is a very clear distinction between what's happening in Bangladesh and say what's happening in Arab countries or
The roots, the origins are different.
origins are
completely
different. The aims are also different.
Aims are Bangladesh is trying to regain the soul which it thought it had in the 50s and 60s, where over a period of many decades, they have been betrayed by political parties over the years.
Okay.
I think that is the issue.
Let me get Jayanto Ghoshal in on this. Jayanto, the Jamaat-e-Islami in Bangladesh, you know, as Ambassador Mukherjee was pointing out, Smruti also was pointing out, you know, it gets about 3 to 5% votes, but it has a disproportionately more influence in that country because not just because of its you know, political standing which it has, but also for the way it has grown as an economic force in that country also, right?
No, true. And the most important thing is that you have to accept that there is a conflict among the Bangladeshis, that there is an identity crisis, that whether there is ethnic loyalty, the Bengali ethnic loyalty versus the religiosity,
right.
there is a problem. But I saw just few days back when I visited Dhaka with Mr. Salman Khurshid, I visited Shahbag, I have saw that it was a spontaneous movement, and that young generation, they have not seen 1971.
Right.
But in spite of that, they want to secularize their own country, and irrespective of this language versus religiosity controversy, they want to get a confluence. What Mr. Dev Mukherjee is saying, he is the authority of Bangladesh. In fact, when I was in Shahbag, I was watching that a lot of people was reading Mr. Dev Mukherjee's article at Shahbag. And I saw that this movement, there is a pro-democracy, but the distinct difference with the Tehrik Square is that they want to secularize Bangladesh, but Tehrik Square actually, the victory of the fundamentalists took place there.
Right.
So there is a major difference between the movement, but it's a pro-democracy, pro-secularism. But the important thing is that Supreme Court of Bangladesh also recently gave an order on secularism. Sheikh Hasina also, what the dream of Mujibur Rahman to secularize Bangladesh. It's officially, constitutionally, it's an Islamic state.
Right.
But if they want to go for secularism, and the pro-democracy movement is on, the counter movement, because when I reached Bangladesh that day, the blogger was, killed.
Yes.
And the whole country, it was a spontaneous, because the Jamaat was telling us, sending SMS and email, that it's a motivated and a government-sponsored movement. But I saw in my own eyes that the doctors, professors, students, they are coming on the street. It cannot be, conducted by the government. It cannot be. But the counter measures, now what we are watching, that Jamaat, what they are doing, that is also a political move.
Right.
I have only one apprehension, that Jamaat, this good Jamaat, bad Jamaat, I don't want to, because it's like our reform of RSS and reform of Jamaat. I think it's like the same thing. And my opinion is that there is an apprehension that militia should not intervene in this violent Bangladesh. The pro-democracy, pro-secularism force should prevail. That is the only apprehension among the Bangladeshi intelligentsias also, that there should not be any intervention of militia. that the pro-democracy movement should succeed.
Jayanto, but you know, this wish of the people or wish of the people who are behind this, what you are calling as a pro-democracy, pro-secular movement, how much of that wish, because you know, the kind of violence which has erupted in Bangladesh.
The main problem is election is coming.
Yes, election is
and
coming.
There is a major problem of on the issue of caretaker government. BNP is not participating. Whether they will participate or not, all the issues are interlinked with this movement. That is the major problem.
Okay. Okay, Jayanto, please stay on. We need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll come back and continue this discussion. Welcome back. We are discussing the Bangladesh crisis. Mr. Mukherjee, the question is, you know, what Jayanto was talking about. Now the question is whether this whole movement will be able to take the whole thing to a logical end. First, second thing is, what is the logical end?
You know, there are clearly some disturbing signs. I mean, you may have heard that the convicted Mr. Saidi's face was morphed onto the moon, and villagers were told that this shows that he's a man of great honor and is to be esteemed, and they came out onto the streets. Now, there is clearly a move by the Jamaat, and I must say, regrettably, it seems to be increasingly backed by the BNP.
Yes.
To make this a religious issue,
right,
which it never was. And
the forthcoming 10 months down the line, there's elections in Bangladesh. As Jayanto was pointing out, everything is now triggered or, you know, shaped according to the needs of the political
parties. No, but this emphasis on religion and causing this religious divide. And the other disturbing thing, of course, is the rather calculated attack on the minorities.
Right.
Which again has a certain Pakistani connotation.
Right.
Now, all this is disturbing. You know, it has political connotations. The BNP seems to have put in its lot with the Jamaat on this issue.
Right.
I think that
though the BNP tried to get closer to the people, the uprising, the people in Shahbag, but you know,
they've been to three phases.
Yes.
First they opposed, then they went along,
yes,
and now they are totally opposed to. They may do another switch again.
Yeah.
But this creates further polarization and makes it more difficult to have a political solution to the kind of crisis Bangladesh is facing. So in other words, what should be treated as a legal question is being turned into Islam in danger question.
Right.
And that makes
that suits them. That
suits them.
Yes.
No, they think it suits them.
They think
whether it does, I'm not so sure.
Yes. Okay. So sure. Smruti, you know, this is very interesting what Mr. Mukherjee is trying to Islam versus non-Islam, Islam versus anti-Islam. This is what the Jamaat and subtly the BNP also is trying to, you know, shape it into, so that it will help them in the next 10 months for the elections. But do you think that the people who are involved in this, the ordinary people, the social media crowd which has gone onto the streets, are they understanding the politics of all these things? And you know, if they understand also, how much can they do about it?
I think initially, when one speaks of the Shahbag movement, one has to take into background what happened before that. Like, for example, in 2005, when you had the suicide attacks and around 460 plus bomb, going
yes,
all over the country, that was something which was very, very new for the Bangladeshis themselves.
Right.
So in fact, after that incident, many of the people, started taking note where the country is moving. And perhaps that is one of the reasons why you saw in 2008 elections, December elections, the way, Jamaat and BNP was completely routed.
Right.
Now, keeping that in mind, I think this is a spontaneous movement. And second issue is that, initially it was against, the war crime trial. But unfortunately, this is not against Jamaat or about Jamaat. It is against the people who were involved in the war crime in 1971. But unfortunately, it is Jamaat which played that role. So therefore,
the majority of the people who are before the war crime tribunal are Jamaat.
Are Jamaat. So therefore, because that was the party which was involved. So therefore, it is becoming Jamaat versus the rest, like Ambassador Mukherjee said. said, there were three phases how the BNP has reacted. I think I will add one more phase to it, which was the previous when the War Crime Trial Tribunal was constituted. The BNP was supportive of the War Crime Trial, but initially perhaps it thought that it is going against its alliance partner, which will affect it electorally. But I think BNP is also going through this heap of phases, in supporting sometime, is against it because it was trying to delegitimize. Now, initially the Jamaat wanted to delegitimize for its own reason, for its party's survivability, by making it a kind of Islam issue.
Okay.
Now, BNP want to delegitimize for a different reason. They can't completely go against Shahbag, but also at the same time, they're trying to say that, the verdict on Saidi was dictated by the people of Shahbag, which I completely disagree.
Okay. Hilal, what are the choices before Sheikh Hasina now? How does she handle this kind of a situation? As all of you have said that, this was not something which she envisaged, it will take this kind of a shape. Now, how is she going to handle? Because controlling violence is definitely the primary thing right now. But, there are larger issues involved, as all of you have been talking about, larger issues involved, elections coming on the way. What are the choices before?
I think because it's a complicated question, and it's again obviously the first choice would be to just stop the violence. But there are something which is coming out as an analyst. I can see that there is very interesting configuration coming up. If you compare this War Crime Tribunal with Truth and South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, you will find that in South Asia the critical events are always evoked with certain kind of politics involved in that. Unlike South African case. Right. In this situation, again, handling the violence is one aspect, but using that for political purposes is another aspect that cannot be ruled out.
That is, I think that's a very interesting point you have made. Mr. Mukherjee, I want you to very briefly dwell on what he said and then come to the next issue, the connection with India. Do you think this was the right moment for the president to visit Bangladesh?
I don't really think the president had a choice. I think once the decision to go, the arrangements had been made, not to go would have sent extremely negative signals unnecessarily. So I think the president did the right thing by being there at this point.
So his visit now and him being there when all these critical events are happening there, will it help in the relations between India and Bangladesh?
Well, I think certainly the government would feel encouraged.
The government of Bangladesh?
The government of Bangladesh. I think the young people of Shahbag would feel encouraged, because not to have gone would have sent extremely negative signals.
Right.
And frankly, even the opposition, they would realize that this is something that had to happen once it had been decided. It simply could not be retracted.
What about Khalida Zia's decision not to meet? The reason which she has given is very specious.
I frankly think it was very unwise, because when she came here a few months ago, she made all the right gestures, and she was frankly given extraordinary treatment by the government of India, which it never gives to opposition leaders from abroad, because India wishes to reach out to different sections of the
Smruti and Hilal, quickly, we are running out of time. Mr. Mukherjee earlier spoke about the minorities being affected in. Do you see that these attacks on minorities, they're not as widespread as one would think, but they are happening in different parts of Bangladesh. Do you see that effect, having any impact on India, more refugees coming in? Do you see that kind of a situation developing again?
I think two reasons. One is the minority community are everywhere vulnerable, so they become easy target of attack. And second issue is that perhaps this is also a tactic to provoke India to come up with some kind of statement, because till now I think India has tried not to get involved in what is happening in Shahbag. We have been very, very cautious. And perhaps this is to instigate India and then finally delegitimize the entire issue by saying this is India instigated, India has supported, that lose the
Mr.
popular
Mukherjee, do you agree
support.
with that?
Yes. No, this is calculated, and this has happened in the past 60 years in Pakistan days. It's not new.
Okay. Hilal, last words to you. How do you think, so far India has taken the right stand?
Obviously, but I am quite apprehensive about the ways in which this attack on minority will result in India, because in Indian politics you cannot.
It will have repercussions on Indian politics.
Obviously, because migration from Bangladesh and minority question are intrinsically linked to BJP kind of rightist politics, which we cannot ignore.
Mr. Mukherjee,
it could.
Assam, will it have a direct bearing on the situation in Assam?
Well, I would just hope that the administration in sensitive states in India would be alert to this, and that there would be no reaction of the kind that Hilal is apprehending. I don't see it happening. And even in Bangladesh, I think the government, even the Supreme Court has come out with a directive that the minority should be protected. So I don't see this getting out of hand unless the Jamaat and the BNP wish to promote some kind of, frankly, a civil war, in which case all bets are off.
Okay, that's on a rather cautious note, or a warning note actually, that we have to end this program. What is happening in Bangladesh is really a matter of serious concern for all of us, not just in Bangladesh but in India too. We'll wait and watch closely what's happening there, and we hope that what happens there doesn't get reflected in our side of the border, as some of my panelists today are concerned about. Let's wait and see what happens. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Dev Mukherjee, Smruti Pattanaik, Hilal Ahmed, Jayanto Ghoshal, who was with us earlier. Thanks to. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on The Big Picture, same time tomorrow.